This is Steve Cochran. Welcome to Live from my office. This is a very important topic. We're not going to waste a bunch of time. We're going to get into business here very quickly. Of course, you can also hear me on the radio on the Big 89 WLS 5:30 to 9, Monday through Friday. We thank you for listening and for your support wherever you do that on your smart devices, by streaming, or even on what we call the radio. So the guest today, Rich Wistocki, a longtime detective for the Naperville Police Department. He will be talking about how to keep your kids safe. We're into a new school year. Your kids can be their own worst enemy unwittingly, and there are steps you can take today that Rich Wistocki will talk about that will help protect them from making stupid mistakes that could literally change their lives or cause them great harm. So it's an important topic. In the meantime, you want to drop me an email, do that anytime at thecochranshow@gmail.com. Tell me a guest you'd like us to focus on or have on, or maybe tell me how to fix the Chicago Bears, and I'll forward the email. In the meantime, let's get after it. Rich Wistocki, a detective that his entire specialty, his company, Be Sure Consulting, is here to protect kids. Roll it. All right, joining us again here on Live from my office and the Big 89 WLS, Detective Rich Wistocki, longtime veteran of one of the finest police forces in the country, the Naperville Police Department, but for years now has been trying to protect your kids, my kids, our kids with Be Sure Consulting, BeSureConsulting.com. We'll talk about that in a second. Anyway, Detective, welcome back.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you being here. You made a point in a speech you made a long time ago that went viral about parents who want to be their kids' best friends. And in one of your TED Talks, you made a point right up front that you thought, well, it may piss off the crowd, but they need to hear this. What was that point?
So when I start out my presentation, I say you may find this very intrusive. You may want to get up and leave this presentation, but here it is. You parents all need to hear this. You are responsible for your children. And that's the message. They're not only responsible for their children, for their food, clothing, shelter, and education, they are responsible for their technology.
And you're not your kid's best friend. You're not your kid's best friend. Here's a phone and do whatever you want with it. Your job is to teach them, keep them safe, protect them, and send them out into the world someday.
Yeah, the type of parenting that when we were growing up, Steve, we were afraid of our parents, right? And when that light went on in the front porch, your butt better have been home, or you do your chores, you do this, you do that. But because if you didn't do that, what happened? You got grounded, maybe you got smacked upside the head or whatever, right?
Right.
So we were afraid of our parents. But in the age of technology, we cannot parent that way because when we threaten our kids into compliance, if you do this, if you do that, I'm going to do this to you, I'm going to do that to you. When we do that, and I ask the kids, how many of your parents talk to you about your technology like that? And 80% of them raise their hand. Now, if you make a mistake and if you've been catfished, are you going to go to your parents for help? And they all say absolutely not.
Well, and I want to get into that, but let me back you up for a second first, because another crucial part of your message is you pay for the phone, you give the kid the phone, whatever your household reasons are for that are what they are. However, one absolutely irrefutable law in your world, and I think it's super smart, super important for people to hear, is your kid does not have the phone in their room. The overnight charger is not in their room. No exceptions. That's the rule.
Right. The common denominator of all these extortion cases we have been investigating, I've been helping other departments investigate, all where there actually has been real live predators picking up our kids. And I had one, unfortunately, a little while ago, where the common denominator is that parents allow their children to have their devices in their rooms at night. When parents do that, they are giving themselves to the wolves.
Right, because you now have let that potential predator into your kid's bedroom.
Right. You're sleeping. They shut the door so you can't hear them. There's no need to talk. It's typing, reading, and performing. That is what your kids would do when you allow them to have their device in their rooms at night.
Now, you have said, Detective, many times, this is not about my kid would never do that, my kid's a good kid, because you've seen it time and time again where a good kid gets into a jam in innocent circumstances, and it spirals into a nightmare.
Correct. And again, so the NNK syndrome, right? Not my kid. So one internet predator, Steve, we talked about this before, can have over 250 victims in their lifetime. 250.
Good Lord.
And there's two reasons for that. The first reason is that parents are suffering from this deadly disease. So here's that for you, Steve. Whenever I go, like I was in union school yesterday, right? I was in union school all day. We do the presentation for parents in Spanish and in English. There's 2,000 kids that go to that school. Less than 1% of the parents will show up. Less than 1%.
And that number is, that number is astounding. But what do you attribute that to?
Because parents put their head in the sand and they tell themselves, and they convince themselves, my kid would never do that. And you're wrong. It's not that we have bad kids, Steve. It's that what predators do to pull your kid over, and they thrive on the fact that parents threaten their kids into compliance, so they'll blame them if it gets out that you're talking to me.
So explain that. Give us a real-world example of that, because this is one of the ways you track down these creeps. But what happens is an innocent kid falls victim to this, and then the threats begin. And what do these animals say to these kids?
Well, let me show you. Let me tell you what happened in my last school that I taught last year, and this was in a school in the western suburbs. I don't want to give it away.
That's fine.
So my message, I don't know what it is last year and this year, but I've had more victims come to me after my presentation. I was in Southern Illinois, Steve, and I taught 6 classes, and I had 16 victims come to me telling me that they were being sextorted. Now, this particular case that we had last year was one of my last schools I taught. It was my 60th school that I taught at. 2 little girls in 8th grade come to me, and then one little girl tells her friend, tell him. You got to tell him. Tell him. And she says, I will. I said, tell me what, sweetheart? And she proceeds to tell me that her 15-year-old friend that she met on Kik, which is a social network, they shared their nudes together. And I was like, well, you shouldn't do that, sweetheart. Now your pictures are out there and anybody can use it against you. I said, but you didn't meet him anywhere, did you? She goes, well, I kind of did. I'm like, you met him? And she goes, yeah. I said, what happened when you met him? Well, he was 45 and married.
Right.
And I'm like, well, he didn't take you anywhere, did you? He goes, well, yeah, he took me to a hotel and we had sex 7 times, Steve. God. And the ploy was she was looking for money, so he had set up a 15-year-old persona in Kik to pay girls to be babysitters. So his 15-year-old son was looking for babysitters. Well, you have to meet my dad if you want this job. So then he meets the dad and the 15-year-old, and the dad, of course, are the same person, and she takes him to the hotel. So I called in the social worker, called in my friends at the Cook County ICAC and the FBI. They were there within 2 hours, Steve, and they did their due diligence, and they arrested this dirtbag, and they had other victims that he had done.
That's tremendous. So you got him off the street. And if the friend doesn't urge the kid to speak up and you didn't develop trust with that kid, maybe the kid doesn't tell you.
Correct. She didn't tell anybody. And her first word was, you're not going to tell my mom, are you? And I'm like, sweetheart, this wasn't your fault. She goes, but the guy told me it was my fault because I'm the one who gave the pictures and he was going to have me and my mom arrested if I ever told anybody. That's the level that they perform. And
they go to a next level, too, right? I mean, there's kids you've told me about where, these kids are being told, if you talk to anyone, I'll kill your parents.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, last school year, I was in my charter schools in Chicago, and I had a freshman run out of my presentation when I started talking about trafficking. And she proceeded to apologize to me after the presentation. And she goes, I'm sorry, but you just hit a nerve with me. I'm like, well, what happened? Last year, she was on Roblox, which is a game that's one of the most popular games out there.
Right.
She was in a chat room in Roblox. She met a 16-year-old boy. They decided to meet at the Rock and Roll McDonald's downtown, and she was roofinaled, and she was put in the trunk and taken to Kentucky.
Good Lord. This is the stuff.
This is the level. Predators go where the kids are, but parents don't want to come to the presentation.
It's maddening. Now, I'm not letting any parents off the hook here, but Are any of these parents just so technically non-sophisticated that they don't know how bad this is? Therefore, I'm not going to go to this because I don't really understand it, and it's not that big a deal.
Right. And my kid would never do anything like that. That's where they find themselves. And Steve, we do our presentations for parents in English, Spanish, Polish, and Arabic.
Yeah, there's no reason not to be there.
There's no excuse.
So let's talk.
Schools are so frustrated. Schools are so frustrated, Steve, that they don't even want to do it anymore.
I understand.
They just do the student presentation. I'll tell you what worked at St. Joseph's School downtown Chicago is that they had the parents' presentation at 8 o'clock in the morning when they're dropping off their kids. I had about 20 parents there, which was really cool. So what I'm doing now is I have a new program calling for athletes and their parents. And what I'm doing is I'm making this principal go to the coaches, say, hey, if your kid wants to play the next game, you and your parents are going to go to this. So it is the student-athlete survival guide for high school students. So I have D1 college coaches come in. Like last time we did this at Providence High School. We had the Loyola coaches for girls and guys, and they talked about what they expect in their recruit, and social media plays a huge role in that, right? So I show them the different things about dating in college and if you have a bad relationship, what to do. So I'm making this mandatory. The coaches have to make it mandatory for all their players to go to this presentation.
That's great.
That's the only way we're going to get parents in.
Well, it's great. It's great because it's a two-track system. The kids have to understand how serious the threat is, but the parents have to understand how serious the threat is so they can do the job of raising and protecting their kids. By the way, it's Be Sure Consulting, BESURE, BeSureConsulting.com. Every school admin and folks in community groups, you should be having this presentation. You can go to the website. You can ask for more information, make contact with Detective Wistocki's team, and move forward from there. Now, you'd mentioned before to me there's a couple of pieces of phone software, whether they be apps or software that you can use. What do parents need to know about that? What should they be doing?
So many parents are struggling, Steve, to give their kid a cell phone. When's the appropriate age? My boys were 11 because they played high-level soccer, and we didn't know what field they were in, right? So we decided to give them a phone, but we got them an Android.
Yep.
So here's the three-step process. So if you have given your kid an iPhone, okay, Apple does not allow third-party real-time monitoring of their devices, but Bark will work, sort of bark.us they can go to. If you go to my website or if you put the coupon code in as Be Sure, you can try it out for 30 days for free.
Okay.
The second step is that if you are in this gray area, not knowing what you're going to do, if you're going to get your kid a phone or not, get them an Android. The Android with Bark on it has real-time monitoring, and it'll get into mostly all the social networks. But Bark has come out with a new product called the Bark Phone, where now their software lies underneath the hard drive of the phone, and you have total remote control of that cell phone. Again, they can go to my house. They can go to my website for monitoring. You just scan the code there, and you can try it out. It's absolutely fantastic. Even if your kid sneaks that phone into their room while you're sleeping, the parents can make that phone a brick and it won't even work. Yeah, it is amazing.
And you may think I've got a wonderful relationship with my kids, and I hope you do. And you may think my kids will tell me, they'll talk to me about anything, and I hope they do. But when a kid gets manipulated and put into a position where they think they're actually protecting you by doing terrible things with someone who has threatened or put them in that position, the whole world is upside down. All because of the stupid phone and not following the basic fundamentals. Because that's the thing. Detective, if people would just follow these basic rules you're laying out here, it's not a perfect world, but a lot of these problems would fall away.
Absolutely. For example, we talked about 11 and 12-year-olds getting social networks where they have to be 13. Now, let's face it, our kids are not the best mathematicians in the world, right? And they will download these apps behind their parents' backs without even asking for permission. So the parents don't understand the rules, and you have to be 13 to have a TikTok, Snapchat, or an Instagram. But what our kids do, they lie about their age. And here's how it goes, Steve. Let's see. I was born in 2012. Do I go up with my date of birth or do I go down my date of birth? Heck with it. I don't want to figure it out. I'm just going to put in 2000 as my date of birth.
Right. So now I'm 23.
And now they're all 23 years old, and they wonder why they're being talked to by predators. Well, that's the reason why.
Yeah, and we're not letting the predators off the hook here either. They're not innocent.
No. And the new form of sextortion for boys is brutal, Steve. So here's what happens. There's all these young girls, like the girl I told you about at the charter school, right? Their only job, once they get held captive, is to send friend requests to teenage boys who are dealing with their hormones and stuff, right? And so 3 days later, this trafficked young girl will say, hey, do you want to go on Instagram video chat? Sure, let's go over there. And the boy is like, well, I got an internet girlfriend now. She starts taking off her clothes and wants him to start taking off his clothes, and they become involved in a sexual relationship on a cam. Well, what's happening now? The trafficker is screen capture, and then when the session is done, the trafficker gets on the cam and says, now that I have you, you've got 4 hours to give me $250 in Apple gift cards.
Good Lord.
If you don't, I'm sending it to everybody. And Steve, I get a call twice a week from parents that I've taught across the country. Twice a week, Steve. I had a mom call me the other day, and she's like, oh, my God, Detective, it happened, and I don't know what else to do. I know you presented at our school. Can you help me? And I was like, well, did you go to the presentation? No, I was kind of busy that day. And I'm like, well, there you go. And she goes, well, they put my son's face on someone else's body, and they're sending it out to my mother. And I'm like, hold on a second. This is how this works. He masturbated in front of a young girl. They screen captured it. It's not some other guy.
Right.
That's him. So you even have kids lying to their parents because of the repercussions, right?
Sure.
Because parents don't have the proper technology talk with their children.
So for parents that don't understand this stuff and are intimidated by technology, and until now and until hearing this didn't know how big a deal it is there an online video portion of this? I mean, maybe you can't go to every town. How do they get the information, or at least part of it, if they can't see you live?
Yeah, so two ways. I mean, they can always go to their school district. Now, I have 7 instructors now that go across the country with me. That's great. When I'm teaching law enforcement, they're teaching in the schools. So please ask your principals to bring us in. We usually do a student presentation in the morning, a student presentation in the afternoon, middle school, high school, and then parents at night. But if they can't make that happen, and it's all paid for, Steve.
Yep.
Every school has something called SEL grant funding.
Right.
Social emotional learning. They already have the funds for it, so it's no big deal. It's virtually free because they get free money for it. Secondly, parents want to do it in the privacy of their own home. They can go to cyberparenting-101.com. It's an online class that's in English and in Spanish. So cyberparenting-101.com. They can get it in the privacy of their own home. And like DuPage County, if a kid is involved with a cybercrime, the judges makes it part of the order that the parents must take this class on their next course.
That's great. Now, should parents watch this with their kids or separately?
I would say with them for sure. But they can also watch. I was involved in a documentary along with Bark called Childhood 2.0. Mm-hmm. It's on YouTube. Actually, Donna Vickery did a whole article on it in the Chicago Tribune this morning. It's called Childhood 2.0. It's a documentary, and it shows what elementary, middle school, and high school students are doing behind their parents' backs and why it's important to monitor. So I would start out with parents watching Childhood 2.0 on YouTube. It's free. If they think their kid can handle the information that's there, go ahead and watch it with them after you've already watched it and be able to pause it and talk to your child about it. Now, there's 2 ways to talk to your kids about this, Steve. When you pause it, don't go and say, you're not doing this, are you?
Right.
What do you think the kid's going to say? You're better off pause it and tell me what you know about this.
Right.
And then you'll hear all the intel. So there is a special way to watch it. And it's really, really informative.
Yeah, and by the way, do it without the accusations.
Yeah.
You know, have you ever seen this? Does this happen at your school, right? Those are the door openers to
Yes.
having a kid talk.
Yes. One of the tricks I tell parents is that, hey, how many of you parents, when I'm talking to them, are the drivers for all your kids? Like, you're going to this game, you're going to that practice. You got 4 or 5 kids in your car at any given time because you're the driver with the van or the Suburban, right? And I said, let me give you a piece of advice. When you're driving these kids, shut up.
Mm-hmm.
Don't say a word. Because there's so many parents want to be involved with these kids' relationships, and they want to be their kids' friends. They want to be part of the conversations. No, 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 no. Sit there, drive, don't say a word, and listen. I had one dad last week come to me right after I said that in one of my presentations. He goes, "You're right, detective." He goes, "I actually put my earbuds on, and they think I'm listening to music, but I'm listening to everything that they're saying." That is where you get your intel.
Yeah, shut up and listen. Yeah, and you know that phone relationship with the phone is it doesn't allow you to have a relationship with your kid. And I've always said this: if you drive your kid to school, it's not a burden; it's a gift, because that's one time during the day where you drive them, you pick them up, and you've got a few minutes of quality the talk time, and you just tell them, "We're not on the phones now. I'm not on the phone. You're not on the phone. Tell me what's going on in your life. Tell me what's going on in school."
Right, and when you hear something important when you're driving kids around, you drop the first one off, you drop the second one, drop the third, drop the fourth, and now you're alone with your kid. Don't drive home. Go into a lighted parking lot, park, and say, okay, we need to talk about what you guys were talking about in the car.
There you go.
Because if you drive home, what are they going to do? They're going to bolt into the house. I'm not talking about this.
Yeah,
So,
right.
yeah, these are the little things that are so important.
All right.
I mean, things so little, Steve, that parents don't even teach their kids how to shake hands with people.
Right. Yeah, look them in the eyes.
How silly that is.
Yeah, no. Just basic human behavior. All right, we're going to run out of time, but there's still a couple of important things to talk about here. We always talk about how do you know who the right candidate is? And I always tell them, well, you got to vote, and B, you got to pick people who are going to take care of the things that matter to you. How do we know who is supporting cybersecurity? And who really gets it, who has a staff that gets it and is pushing it? How do we know that?
Well, I would go with the people who go with parents first. However, Steve, I've been really disappointed. I have House Bill 1112 out there. And for your listening audience, please go to House Bill 1112 and support it. I'm trying to change the cyberbullying statute, but I can only get Democratic. Representative Maurice West has been amazing out of Rockford, and he's the only one who'll sit down with me because he's got daughters. I have.
And are you getting just the blow off or pushback or both?
Well, he's supportive of it, but I'm really getting a lot of pushback from the ACLU, and we're in negotiations about this because they don't want to make child speech criminal matters.
Oh, good Lord.
But Representative Croakey from the north side of Chicago, she passed an amazing cyberbullying statute where in schools, if they're cyberbullying, when the school has to notify the parents within 24 hours and the investigation has to be done within 10 days. However, here's the quagmire in all this. Because they don't want to pass my bill of HB 1112, we can't investigate those matters if it's not a criminal act. I can't do a preservation. I can't do a subpoena. I can't do a search warrant on a case if I don't have the law to support it, right? And that's what I'm trying to do. I just wish they would take Representative Croakey's definitions and put it over on the criminal side. This would protect our children 100%. But I'm really I'm having, myself and Jamie Mosser, who is the state's attorney in Kane County, her and I are part of this working group trying to get this to the end. And we actually have a meeting within the next few days again. But unfortunately, here's the reality. Because how busy CPD is, right? Because those resource officers are really busy dealing with serious crimes, it is their job as SROs is different than everybody else in the state of Illinois' job, right? Everybody else in the state of Illinois follows something called a triad when you're an SRO. we are first mentors and pseudo caseworkers for the children they protect. They are teachers, and then they're police officers. This is the triad for SROs. And I'm having a hard time convincing the people of the group that, look, just because it's this way in Chicago, it doesn't mean that it's the way for the entire state, that our SROs are well-trained, and if they're not, we're going to get them to that point. Now, I'm of the opinion that if you pass this, I don't even care if you put in the first offense is it has to be a station adjustment or diversion by the juvenile officer or the SRO, and then they come back at me. They're like, well, SROs shouldn't be doing diversion. I said, are you kidding me? That's their duty under the Juvenile Court Act of 1987. They have to do station adjustment before any arrest. And you can't give tickets to kids in school anymore. That's illegal. So you have to give them station adjustment or diversion. Train them. We must train our kids and our parents why what they're doing is wrong, and then not make this part of their permanent record by arresting them and taking them fingerprints, right?
And supply more money to police budgets for making sure they have cyber resources and trained personnel going forward. You know that better than anybody.
Yeah, but we need to have correct training.
Correct training, right, proper training. Now, you also mentioned Apple versus Android. I'm an Android guy by choice forever. But why isn't Congress, why isn't the federal government putting more pressure on Apple to allow this type of security and protection?
Well, their lobby is so strong, Steve, it doesn't even matter. Actually, I was in, where was I? I was in South Carolina about a month ago, and I met with Ro Khanna. And I had a long discussion with him because he's in charge of Silicon Valley. And when I told him some of the things that were going on, especially with two companies called Signal and Telegram, they don't respond to law enforcement subpoenas. So why should they even be in existence? And this is where, did you hear about how these kids are selling their services for swatting schools? It's happening on Signal and Telegram, but these two companies will not respond to law enforcement subpoenas and search warrants. So they are allowing this criminal act to continue. And when I told Ro Khanna that, he put me in touch with his assistant, and I've been in constant contact with his assistant because he's in charge of Silicon Valley.
Well, and here's the thing too: when you have people who are politicians who don't respond to subpoenas, and it becomes a major part of the news cycle. If it's okay for them to blow off subpoenas, then the whole system starts to break down. I'm not excusing Signal or Telegram, but somehow we've made that level of behavior okay as well. All right, never enough time to
system of justice for sure.
Never enough time to do all of this. But if you go to Be Sure Consulting and you click on the contact tab, you can have Detective Wistocki or his people come anywhere. They'll go anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Anywhere in the country.
And his email is easy. It's Rich Wistocki, Wistocki, at BeSureConsulting.com. And please, please, please have the conversation with your kids. Go through the steps we talked about. And I can't thank you enough for the time. Keep up the good work. We need you.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate you.
Right. Thanks again to Rich Wistocki. It's Be Sure Consulting, BESURE, consulting.com. And thank you to Ross Cochran for producing another exciting edition, or actually a very important edition, of Live from My Office. Please share this episode with other parents and give them the resources you now have for listening. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the radio or right back here on Live from My Office.
Thank you for listening to Live from My Office, a service of Monkey Run Productions. All rights reserved. The podcast is hosted by Steve Cochran, and it's mixed, edited, and produced by me, Ross Cochran. Steve is available for corporate speaking gigs. He would love to MC your event, and occasionally, he's funny. Thank you for listening. Head to cochranshow.com for more.